We in India pride ourselves on being a democracy. The idea of participation in decision making and having the consent of citizens are the elements that collectively make us a democracy, and this is best expressed in the institution of the Parliament. As the Parliament enables citizens of India to participate in decision making and control the government, it is considered as the most important symbol of Indian democracy and a key feature of the Constitution. In this chapter, we will study: why should people decide? Under the colonial rule in India, the people had lived in fear of the British government and did not agree with many of the decisions that they took. However, the Indian freedom struggle changed this scenario a bit as the nationalists began openly criticizing the British government and make demands. Owing to such growing demands of the nationalists, the Government of India Act 1909 allowed for some elected representation, but still all adults were not allowed to vote, nor could people participate in decision making. The experience of the colonial rule had injected a common feeling among the nationalists that the government in independent India should be sensitive to people's needs and demands. Thus, the Constitution of Independent India laid down the principle of universal adult franchise, that is, that all adult citizens of the country have the right to vote. People and their representatives. The takeoff point for a democracy is the idea of consent, that is, the desire, approval, and participation of the people. But how does the individual give approval to the government? One way of doing so is through elections. People elect their representatives to the Parliament. Then one group from among these elected representatives forms the government. The Parliament, which is made up of all representatives together, controls and guides the government. In this sense, people, through their chosen representatives, form the government and also control it. How is the Parliament formed? The Parliament in our system has immense powers because it is the representative of the people. During elections, the country is divided into numerous constituencies. Each of these constituencies elects one person to the Parliament. Once elected, these candidates become members of Parliament or MPs, and collectively they make up the Parliament. The Parliament of India consists of the President, the Rajya Sabha, and the Lok Sabha. Once the Lok Sabha elections are over, a list is prepared showing how many MPs belong to each political party. To form the government, a political party must have a majority of the elected MPs, which is 272 members or more, since the total number of elected are 543 members. The opposition in Parliament is formed by all the political parties that oppose the majority party. The largest amongst these parties is called the opposition party. The role of the Parliament: select the national government. The most important function of the Lok Sabha is to select the executive. The executive is a group of people who work together to implement the laws made by the Parliament. The Prime Minister of India is the leader of the ruling party in the Lok Sabha. From the MPs who belong to his party, the Prime Minister selects ministers to work with him to implement decisions. These ministers then take charge of different areas of government functioning like health, education, finance, etc. The Rajya Sabha represents the states of India in the Parliament. Its role is to review and alter the laws initiated by the Lok Sabha. A bill is required to pass through the Rajya Sabha in order to become a law. The members of the Rajya Sabha are elected by the elected members of the legislative assemblies of various states. There are 233 elected members plus 12 members nominated by the President. The role of the Parliament: control, guide and inform the government. The opposition parties of the Parliament play a critical role in the healthy functioning of a democracy. By using mechanisms like question hour, they highlight drawbacks in various policies and programs of the government and mobilize popular support for their own policies. This way, the government also gets valuable feedback and is kept on its toes. Thus, the MPs as representatives of the people have a central role in controlling, guiding and informing the Parliament. Who are the people in the Parliament? Parliament now has more and more people from different backgrounds and thus has become more representative. This is because there is a realization that when interests and experiences separate us, it is important to ensure that communities that have been historically marginalized are given adequate representation. Thus, in Parliament, some seats are reserved for SCs and STs to represent Dalit and Adivasi interests in Parliament. Having read the previous chapter, now we know that the Parliament is in charge of making laws. But do these laws apply to everyone? How do new laws come into being? Could there be laws that are unpopular or controversial? In this chapter we will study: do laws apply to all? In independent India, there is a rule of law. This implies that all are equal before the law. The law cannot discriminate between persons on the basis of their religion, caste or gender. Further, any crime or violation of law has a specific punishment as well as a process through which the guilt of the person has to be established. The Constitution of India serves as the foundation on which our representatives make laws for the country. Also, every year our representatives pass several new laws as well as revise existing ones. How did laws work in ancient India? In ancient India, we had innumerable and often overlapping local laws. Different communities enjoy different degrees of autonomy in administrating these laws among their own. For instance, the punishment that two persons received for the same crime varied depending on their caste backgrounds, with lower caste being more harshly penalized. How did laws work in colonial India? It is often said that the British colonialists had introduced the rule of law in India. However, This statement has been challenged by various historians on two grounds. They argue that, firstly, colonial law was arbitrary, and second, the Indian nationalists play a prominent role in the development of the legal sphere in British India. They substantiate their argument with the example of the Sedition Act of 1870. According to this, any person protesting or criticizing the British government could be arrested without due trial. Indian nationalists began protesting, criticizing this arbitrary use of authority by the British and fighting for greater equality. By the end of the 19th century, the Indian legal profession also began emerging and demanded respect in colonial courts. Thus, there were several ways in which Indians played a major role in the evolution of the rule of law during the colonial period. How do new laws come about? The Parliament has an important role in making laws. There are many ways through which this takes place. However, the role of citizens is crucial in helping the Parliament to frame laws. It is because it is different groups in society that raise the need for a particular law, and it is expected from the Parliament to be sensitive to the problems faced by people. From establishing the need for a new law to its being passed, at every stage of the process, the voice of the citizen is a crucial element. This voice can be heard through TV reports, newspaper editorials, radio broadcasts, local meetings, all of which help in making the work that Parliament does more accessible and transparent to the people. Unpopular and controversial laws. Sometimes a law can be constitutionally valid and hence legal, but it can continue to be unpopular and unacceptable to people. In such a situation in India, citizens can express their unwillingness to accept repressive laws framed by the Parliament and pressurize the Parliament to change it. People who think that the law is not fair can approach the court to decide on the issue. The court has the power to modify or cancel laws if it finds that they don't adhere to the Constitution. Thus, it is the extent, involvement and enthusiasm of the people that helps the Parliament perform its representative functions properly.